Today I'm going to show you how easy it is to develop a single mobile application for different platforms using AWI MX. With our application, we will be able to create, update and store data on the device, as well as synchronize data with a back-office system. There are two editions of AWI MX, an Enterprise Edition allowing you to create business mobile apps that are deployed to your mobile devices using mechanisms internal to your organization, and a Public Store Edition, which is an add-on to the Enterprise Edition. Supported in Azure, it allows you to create public-facing mobile apps that can be made available via one of the publicly accessible app stores. So let's have a look at the AWI MX components that enable the creation, deployment and management of our mobile applications. The central component is the MX App Server, which handles all the communications and provides user authentication and device and application management capabilities. The App Server can synchronize with databases, web services, and also interface with our application integration product, AWI SX. This array of options enables MX to connect to virtually any back-office system. The MX App Studio development tool is used to develop mobile applications with handy drag-and-drop technology, as well as many other features for rapid application development, which I will demonstrate in a moment. All developed applications are published to the MX App Server database. Application, device and user settings can be managed using the App Manager administration tool, which allows administrators to modify the configuration settings stored in the App Server database. Once applications are ready, they can be deployed as required to multiple users via the MX clients, which can run on Windows PCs and phones, Android devices, Apple smartphones and tablets. These clients can download data from back-office systems via the App Server, edit and store data locally while offline, and then sync the data back to the office when connectivity is available. To be able to develop an application for all these different platforms without MX would require many different programming skills, development tools, and many hours of work. The MX Toolkit gives you everything you need to design and deliver enterprise mobile applications to all these platforms in a fraction of the time. What's more, your applications share a single codebase and form design, meaning that any changes required can be made and deployed quickly across all platforms. So this is what we're going to do. We will create a forms-based application using App Studio. The application that we'll be developing today is a case management application for a fictional organisation called Riverside that can be used to log new cases into their back-office system. We will create some forms for our application that will be used by users to navigate the application and enter, save and upload data. We will see how to connect to a data source, which will expose the database schemas to our application. These data sources will be used to download and synchronize data with the back office. We will add controls to our application and map them to data source elements. We'll also change the size, alignment and style of the controls. We will create scripts based on events associated with our forms and controls, which will determine the functionality of the application, such as what to do when we press a button. And then we'll transfer the forms across multiple target platforms. We'll then publish the application to the App Server and look at the MX Management tool App Manager to see how we can control things like encryption, user access and auditing. We'll download the application to our mobile device using the MX client and demonstrate the application running. We'll then create a new case and see what happens when synchronizing the data with the back office. So let's get started. But before I dive into the development of the application, I first want to show you the back-office system and the process that we will be mobilizing. So I'm just going to open up the CRM system. And this is the Riverside CRM that is used by our fictional public sector organisation to log and manage cases for their customers. These cases could be anything from care visits to housing repairs to property inspections and anything in between. Please note that this is just an example back-office application. The application in question could be anything from a patient administration system, an environmental services database, or a community nursing system, to name just a few. I will now show you how an agent in a call centre might enter a new case in the system. So firstly, they would open up Views, go to Customers, And then you just need to select a customer, so we'll go with Jim here and click on New Case. Then just need to select a type, so we'll go with Inspection, and we'll put this down as a Property Inspection. And then we need to choose an appointment date, so I'm just going to go ahead and pick some random date here and then click OK. If I then go to cases, we can see that the new case has been added to the system. However, what if a field worker wants to create a new case when they are with a customer? What we need is a mobile application that the field workers can use to log a case without having to call into the call centre. And this is what we'll be creating in this webinar. So let's start by having a look at App Studio, the tool we'll be using to design the mobile application. So I'm just going to close this down and open up App Studio. And over on the left here we have the Forms tab, which is where we can add forms to our application for our various target platforms. Next to this we have Data Sources. And this is where we can add data sources which can be used to upload and download data to and from our back office systems. Then we have Resources, where we can import resources such as images and audio into our project from disk or from a built-in library. And then over on the right hand side you can see the Properties pane, where we can change various control and project properties. And just next to this is the toolbox from which we can drag and drop controls onto our forms. So let's create the Riverside app. I'm just going to close this one down and create a new one. So I'm just going to up here and click on New, and we'll close this one. I'm just going to call this Riverside. And you can see here I can choose from a selection of target platforms. Just to keep things simple, I'm going to stick with an iPhone. It's for now, but later I can show you how quickly an application designed initially for iPhone can be transferred to Android and Windows without changing a single line of code and appear on each device as a native app. So let's get going and create ourselves a home page. I'm going to click OK, and we're going to add some controls to it. So just need to click on the Forms pane and start a new form. So click on New Form in the ribbon bar, create an Apple form. Here we have a representation of our Apple device. And what I want is 4 labels on here. One will represent the logo for the app, and then I have 3 options that the user can select, where they can either raise a new case, upload cases, or exit the application. So let's go ahead and grab some labels, otherwise known as static text boxes. Now you can do that either by dragging and dropping. Can feed that onto the form there, or you can double click and it inserts a label on the form. You can also select it and then draw the label yourself, or you can just simply cut and paste, Control C, Control V. And then it's just a case of laying out the form how you would like it to look. I can either use the mouse here to select these. I can multiple select and stretch and resize these all at the same time, or move them at the same time. Or alternatively, you can use the properties in on the right hand side here. So if I have this one selected, this is going to be my logo. This one, for instance, I can position at 110 by 50, and I can also set its size here. This one I'm going to set to 210 by 40, and that will be our logo. While we're here, let's call this Riverside. So we're just going to change the caption here so that it says Riverside, so it's a bit more meaningful to the users. And for our first option, I'm going to position this at 110 by 150 and set its size to 210 by 40 as well. And then to make things easier and quicker, I can select all of these and I can use our alignment tools here, and I can also make them the same size. So if I click on make same size, do it same size, so same width and height, see it instantly saves me having to set the sizes myself myself, so I just need to position these where I'd like these to be. That's fine. Now the first option, I'm going to change the caption to be new case. The second option, I'm going to change that to read upload cases, and the last option will be to exit the application. Might also want to rename the form as well, make it a bit more meaningful for any other developers to come along. So rather than being known as Form 1, let's name this FRM Home. But you also want to change the caption to make it more obvious to the users what this is, so we'll just call this the Home form, like so. And then we might want to add some styles just to make things look a bit better. So here we have at the top of the ribbon bar, there's a couple of default styles. We're not going to use those. We just want to create our own, so let's just select the logo and create a new style. And I'm going to call this title. And for the title, I want to have bold lettering. I want to increase the font size to 26. And let's have, say, a dark grey font colour. And likewise with the options, let's create another style for these. Just go edit style new, and we'll call this options. And for the options, I'm going to have a font size of 20, and we'll also make this a dark grey. And then to apply that to the other options, all I need to do is select those by holding down Control, left clicking, and then just choose the style that I want to apply. So let's click on options, and there we go. Might also want to add some images to our project, and you can either use they've got a set of built-in icons that you can choose from, and you can also include your own images and sound files if you wish. To import them, you just go to Resources, and I'm going to right click on Images. First of all, I'm going to import my own images. So for that, I'm going to go to the desktop. I've got a folder here where I've kept them. I'm just going to select all of those, click open to import those, and if I expand images now, you can see that those have come in. But also want a set of images, or icons rather, that I want to take from our built-in library. So let's pop into the default folder here for the blue icon set, and I'm going to use add, so that we can raise a new case. Also going to go with clear. Also want previous prospect. I want the refresh, and that will do. Select those, and now they've imported. Now what we can do is we can add one of these as our logo. So we go with the small Riverside Small, drag and drop that on. You can see it creates a picture control for us, and if I just resize that, say about that size, you can see that the image doesn't quite fit in the picture control, and to correct that, we've got a property setting you can change to change the mode. Rather than fixed, we can get the image to auto fit inside the control, like so. And then it's just a case of for the other icons, I'm just going to copy and paste the picture control and move that down slightly. And now I just want to select the images that I want to display in here. So for new case, I want to use the plus icon. So to do that, I can just change the properties over here and choose my add icon. For upload cases, I'm going to choose the refresh, and for exit, I'll choose the previous prospect. There we are. Might also want to add a background image. So let's just drag and drop that on there and position that up in the corner, stretch that out, And just notice that this also doesn't quite fit properly, so again we need to change the mode to auto fit. And you'll also notice that that's appeared above the other images, which is no good, so let's change that. And the reason why that's happened is it's because the last control to be drawn on the form, so let's just change the order in which things appear. So let's just right click on that picture control and move it up to the top. Oh, move to top, there we go. And now that's gone behind the others because it's the first to be drawn on the form. We want the users to be able to tap anywhere to select these options, so we'll create 3 blank picture controls which we will use as buttons. So if I go to Toolbox and select a picture control, just pop one on the form there and drag that over. If I just then stretch that out so that it covers that entire area, now the user can click anywhere within this control and we can now use that as a button, so they don't need to individually click on the new case label or the icon. And to apply that to all of the others, I'm just going to copy and paste that picture control, and that's got them all covered. So we've completed the layout of our first form, but in order to avoid repetition, I will now skip ahead and load a semi-completed version of the application, and we'll look at some further application development features such as adding more control types, mapping the controls to a data source to enable users to enter data, and adding code to events to make a functioning application. So let's go ahead and load the pre-built app, and I'm going to save that, and let's have a look. We can see the home form that you saw somebody developed just a minute ago, and on this version we also have a second form to be able to raise a new case. And you see that this is it's almost complete. We have a list view and we have an edit control already on the form, but there's a variety of control types that we can add here as well as these. We've got things like buttons that we can use for navigation and to perform actions. We have data entry controls such as checkboxes, radio buttons, combo list boxes, and complex list views for selecting options from a list. There's also special controls such as a slider control that allows the selection of a value using a slider, a progress control for showing progress of actions, and an ink picture control for recording pen strokes, say if you want to capture signatures or annotate. And there's also a timer control for performing actions on a regular basis. What we need to complete this form is a date picker for picking up an appointment date and a combo for selecting an appointment type. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a date picker. There it is. Let's just add that onto the form and position that there. I'm also going to add a combo box, and let's just position that there. Now each one of these controls has its own unique set of properties. So for example, with date picker, we can change things like the format of the date that it displays. In this case it's currently showing the long date, but we could just show the short date or just the time, but we'll leave this on long date for now. And the type, again, this has its own unique set of properties. So instead of a drop down, we could change this to say a drop list, and so we'll leave it as that. What we need to do now is map these controls to a data source to allow a user to enter and record data which can be saved on the device and later synchronized with the back office application. First, let's have a look at the options for data sources which we can use to download and upload data from our back office system. So I'm just going to pop over to the Data Sources tab, and this allows us to add and modify data sources to connect to our back office systems using a variety of different methods. And our options are the AWI web service for integrating with an application using the SX toolkit. There's ADO for accessing any databases for which you have drivers. There's also standard web services for both SOAP and REST. And then you can create your own custom tables and views which can be used to filter data locally on the device or to download data via complex SQL statements or stored procedures. And then there's PIM information, which provides access to contacts and appointments on the device. The Riverside CRM uses a SQL database, and we already have added the data source, as you can see here. If I just expand that, I'll just explain what we're using these tables for. So for the case table, this is used for storing entered case information. So when we create our case, we'll store the information in there. We've got the case types table, which will be used to set the options available in the types combo box. And then there's the customer table, will be used to look up customer information for the list view. First, we need to data map our complex list view. This control allows lists to be displayed where each row can have a multi-line layout. A complex list view is defined using templates. I'll just show you how we define those. So I just need to pop over to Forms and go to the bottom here, and we see there's an existing template already assigned to this list view. So if I just open that up, we can see the representation of the row here. And now we just need to map these controls to the data source. So for the ref, we'll associate this with the customer reference from the customer table. And all I need to do is just drag and drop from the data source onto the control and tell it which direction I wish the data to travel. So in this case, we want data to come from the data source and be input into the control. So we'll leave that as input. And then likewise with name, we want to input that into the name field. And then with address, we'll input that into the address field. And as I do this, you'll see these little arrows appear indicating the direction of the data. So that's the list view mapped. Let's map the remaining fields. So for the combo box, it's going to grab the appointment types from the type field from the case types table here. So I'm just going to again drag that on to the form and input that into the control. However, when the user has made their selection, they've selected their appointment type and they go to save the appointment, we want to store what they've selected in the case type field in the case table. So we're going to go the other way. So I'm going to drag and drop that onto the control, but this time choose output because we want the data to come from the control to the data source. Then for appointment date, it's just using the default date, so we'll just assign that to input and output. And then for the edit box, we want to, for the details, we want to store the details of the case in the detail field here. So again, just drag that onto the form and we'll also input and output that. So that's complete. Any data that we enter into this field when the app's running will now be saved locally on the device when the form is completed. And then it can be synchronized to the server at a later time when you've got a connection and the data entry is complete. Let's have a look at how we might be able to design this form for another platform. So at the moment we've got this design for iPhone, but what if we wanted to use this on, say, an iPad? Ideally the form should resize itself appropriately to fit the screen. What we can do is use control repositioning properties. We need to set these properties for the type and appointment controls we added so that they position correctly on the device. Here with the existing details field, you can see over in the properties that we've already locked this to the left and right edges to the bottom edge, and it will scale widthwise only. We need to do a similar thing with the appointment type and date. Now what we will do is lock these to the right edge, lock them both to the bottom edge, and have them both scale width only. So we've created and mapped all the controls in our forms. We now need to add scripts to our form and control events in order to make our app work. The home screen is already configured, but we need to add some code to the new case form. So if I click on the form itself and look in the properties, you can see here we've got a number of events at the bottom that we can add code behind. The one that we're interested in here is the onload, so what happens when the form first loads. If I go into that event, I can start adding some code here. And we've got it built in IntelliSense, so if, for example, I started typing the letter C and then press Control Space, and get a list of potential methods that I can insert beginning with the letter C. The one that I want in this case is create record. So what we want to happen is when the user first goes to create a case, we would just want it to automatically create a new record for the user. And to create a new record, we want to create it in the case table, like so. Then to update anything that is mapped to the data source, we can also refresh those controls by using the refresh controls command, like so. And that's the onload, form onload event complete. If the user wants to back out, however, and doesn't want to save any changes, we can add some code to this delete button here. So let's open up the on-click event for that button. And the command to remove the record or delete the record is just simply delete record. And then we just need to tell it which record we want, or which data source we want to delete the record from. In our case, we created it in the Riverside CRM case table, so that's where we want to remove it. And then we can also automatically return the user back to the home screen, which would be quite useful. So to do that, we can use the command next form and choose the form that we want them to return to. So in this case, the home form. The save button has got a bit more code behind it, so we've written that already. I'll just explain what that's doing. So when the user goes to save or create the new case, it's going to grab the customer reference number from the list view that the user has selected, and it's going to store that customer reference value for us in the new record that we've created. And rather than have the user have to choose that the case has been logged, we will automatically set that flag in the status column. So we're going to use code there just to automatically set the case as logged. And then we're going to commit the record to the local table by using update current record. After that, what we're doing is we're automatically synchronizing the local records with the server. So in this case, we're going to do an asynchronous transaction, which is what this second parameter does. And we're synchronizing the Riverside CRM case table. While that sync is taking place, we'll automatically return the user back to the home form. So we want to deliver our application across multiple platforms. To do this, we will add our other target platforms to the application and then copy the form layouts across all platforms. So to do that, we're just going to add, let's go with a Windows platform. And let's say the resolution for this is 400 by 550. We might also have an Android, and the resolution for that could be 480 by 800, and we might need to set a high DPI for this. And we also want to link these forms. So what this link does is it ensures that all of the code and all of the controls are all shared across all of the platforms. So if you add a control to one of the forms, it's shared by all of the platforms and all of the forms. And likewise with the code, if you add code, make any changes to code, it applies to all platforms. So there we go, we've added our additional platforms. To double check this, I've gone to Forms, and we can see if I go to, say, the Windows platform and open up the home screen, There we can see our home form. You can see things don't quite fit. That's because the controls have been copied between the platforms, but the layout does not reflect the positioning properties we set for the controls. So to adjust this, or to fix this, we just simple case of going to the Apple platform, go to its home screen. If I now select all of these controls, just press Ctrl A and right click, I can copy the layout to all of my platforms. And if I do the same with my new case form, select all the controls, right click and copy this to all of the platforms. If I now go back to the Windows form, you can see that it's now applied the repositioning properties. And just double check the new case screen. There you can see our new type and appointment controls have automatically scaled. If I look at just to prove that on the Windows here, if I look at the code behind the delete button, you can see it's got exactly the same code that you saw me write earlier. So I've not had to add any new code or add any new controls. It's all been copied across for us. So that's development now complete for all platforms. Let's publish the app to our app server. To do that, we can go up to Publish Project. If I click here and choose Publish to Server, I can then choose my MX server, which chooses my default server. I can hit publish, off it goes, and once that's completed, if all's well, then it just finishes. Otherwise, you can click here to check the log. Otherwise, click close, and then that's now been published and it's ready to be deployed and run on our MX clients. Before we take a look at that, let's just take a quick look at our application in the App Manager. So I'm just going to open this up, and let's just reduce the App Studio for a second. So here's the App Manager. This is used to manage the apps, users, devices and server settings, and here are some of the key points. On the Server tab, we have settings for encryption, and all data is transferred and stored using 256-bit AES encryption, and this is enabled by default. We have an Audit tab, and this can be used for tracking server communications, and we can also set up email alerts so that administrators can be alerted when errors occur. The Server tab also reports various usage statistics for the server in the center here. On the Applications tab, this shows us a list of all of the apps that we've published to the server, one of which being our Riverside demo. And you can select the properties of an application. Let's go say with this one. And we've got a choice here of either forcing users to download an application, or we can have them choose to download the app. We can also set up access control lists as well. You can either deny or allow individual users, groups and devices. These can be either Active Directory users, or you can have your own local MX accounts set up locally on the server. Note that this control is granular down to the individual version of the application, which allows us to, for example, deploy a new test version of the application to only certain users. The Application tab also has its own audit. Here we can see the communications between the application and the server. The Device, Users and Groups tabs, we can use these to set security actions. So for example, if a particular device was lost or stolen, we could set a security action here to either purge the MX applications, or we could purge the applications and the MX installation, or just deny that device access to the server altogether. This can also be applied to users, so if you had a particular user, you could choose them from the list and also apply the same security action. Groups can be used to allow or deny access to groups of individuals and or devices. So I'm now going to demonstrate the application running on various client devices. Let's close this down. First of all, I'm going to show it running on the Windows client, which I have here. And down the bottom is a list of apps that I can download. I'm just going to refresh the list, make sure it's up to date. Now the app that I published here, Riverside Demo version 10, let's just download that, click OK, and it now appears under my list of applications that I can run. So to run that, I just click it, and in we go, and we can raise a new case. Let's choose, say, Jonathan Creek, and go with maybe a service. Select a date, let's pick a random date here, and say service a 40 boiler, for instance. Now I can either back out of my changes, or if you remember, I can hit the save button, and this should automatically save the record locally on the device, but also synchronize with the back office system. So what we should find is that when I save this, it's going to give us a notification that the sync was successful. I can now come out of the application and just minimize the client. If I go back into the Riverside system and look at my cases, we can now see the case that I just logged for Jonathan Creek, service of 40 boiler. As part of App Studio, we also have the ability to publish your MX applications as standalone apps across all platforms. If I just pop in here, and to do that, we can just go to the Publish tab here, request a build, and request a standalone app for your chosen target. In this case, you might want Apple. And here you can set things like logo images, you can create a link on the desktop if it was the Windows client. You can also add background and accent colors, and you can also preset the MX server address here as well. To write applications for your own use on Apple devices, you need to obtain a certificate from Apple. You will also need to sign your applications with this certificate, which you can do by including the certificate in the configuration details for your standalone applications. I will now demonstrate this running on my iPad. So to do that, I just need to start up some third-party software and just mirror that screen on here. Let's see if this will connect. There we go. And here we can see the standalone icon for the Riverside CRM. So if I click on that, it goes into the app. If I start this up, you can see it goes to the home screen where we've got exactly the same screen, same form. I can go into the same things to create a new case. This time let's do an inspection, and let's pick a random day and enter some details. So inspect garden gate. Very random, but let's save that. We see that should then get synchronized with the server. And if I just get rid of this and pop back into the Riverside CRM, we can see the case come in from the iPad for Sherlock Holmes to inspect a garden gate. So let's have a recap of what we just did. First of all, we used the App Studio to create the application and position and resize the controls. We then connected the app to multiple data sources and mapped the controls themselves to the data source fields. We then created scripts for the form and the control events, so what to happen when we press a button, and we transferred the forms across multiple platforms. We then published the app to the server and downloaded the app to various mobile devices. We then saw the app running, and we synchronized the case data back to the office and confirmed that that appeared in the CRM system. Well, as you've seen, we have developed a single app for multiple platforms using a single development tool, the App Studio. To do all this without MX would require separate investments in things like the server and client communications, security, encryption and compression, and the list goes on. You'd also need to invest in programming skills for many different languages because each platform has its own standards and development paradigms. This involves more time, more money, more hassle, more risk. With MX, you don't need to worry about any of these considerations because all these features come built into the MX toolkit, and the codebase is shared across all platforms, enabling you to instantly move on with the development of a multi-platform app with just a single intuitive development tool.